Dividing by zero, learning to know what women want, and trying to convince a Goku fan that Superman would beat him in a fight. These are three impossible things. Well, you can add to that list predicting the outcome of Pound 2016 because, my goodness, this was a hell of a tournament that you just couldn't predict. So many upsets, so many crazy, unprecedented things with Zero out of commission with medical issues. It was, once again, wide open for Nairo, maybe DeBuzz to take that crown. It's the first major that Nairo didn't win and that Zero didn't win. We had a new champion, Mr. Abadango, electing to go with Mewtwo because he's just a master of picking up a new character and taking him to new heights. First with Pac-Man, then with Meta Knight, now with Mewtwo. And we did see a little bit of the Meta Knight to go up against DeBuzz in that what seemed like the counterpick of counterpicks against the Rosalina with that Meta Knight because those up air strings were still working post-patch. It was insane. Nairo going down in like pools. It was crazy. He lost to a Robin, a character that, he started maining early on in the game, and he was finished in 59th, tied for 59th. Nairo, number 2 player in the world, the only person to win a Smash 4 major outside of Zero, and he won the last tournament, and he loses like earlier than anyone could have thought in their wildest dreams. His lowest finish in any competition ever, I think, including Brawl probably. And it finished 59th. And so you thought, okay, this has got to be, probably DeBuzz's match. No, he finishes in 9th. Doesn't even get top 8. So it was crazy. Abadango getting that victory all the way through winners, going up against Ally, who had a lot of tight games. His best finish ever, finally getting, that top 2 finish that we knew that he's been capable of for the past year, more than that. And then we have Mars, a Zero Suit Samus. So we did get to see a Zero Suit in top 3, but it wasn't Nairo. It was Mars who made that adaptation on the post-nerf of Zero Suit a little bit better than Nairo, and he got the 3rd finish. And then 4th, we have Mr.R with the Sheik, adapting a little better than VoiD in the 1.1.5 patch of the Sheik nerfs. But don't worry, she'll get nerfed again. And then we have Tweak with Cloud, 5th place, about where you expected him. And then he had VoiD with the Sheik, as well as some Fox. I think we're going to see a lot of Sheiks pulling out secondary characters, or maybe even switching mains post-nerf. But still getting, of course, really good finishes, as we know, Mr.R and VoiD. The top 2 Sheiks in the world. Now that Zero probably won't be using Sheik very much, because, he's got Diddy Kong, and that's a better matchup against Bayonetta anyway. And then you have Larry Lurr, 7th place, with the Fox, as well as a little bit of Donkey Kong. It's something we've seen before. And he gets, 7th place, top 8 finish. Is what we expected. His projection has gone nowhere but up, and he's still going up. So this is not like a backstep for Larry Lurr. And then we have Pink Fresh, the Bayonetta main, coming out of nowhere. There with tied for 7th in the finish. Was the highest placing Bayonetta. There was only 2 in top 16. And he was the highest with some crazy combos that we saw in him. DeBuzz with 9th place, as well as Hyuga. And then we have Esam switching out Pikachu most of the time for Corrin and getting that 9th place. And then we have Kid Goggles, a Sonic main, who pulled out a Kirby. A Kirby that, get this, took Mr.R Sheik to Game 5. Final stock with the percentage lead. It was insane. More on that later. We had Scat, Mega Man, one of his stronger finishes, but we knew he was capable of this. Saj's Bayonetta, also at 13th, and Nakat, pulling out mostly Ness, as well as a little bit of Pikachu. And then K9's Bruce, Diddy Kong, and as well as some of the Sheik. We know K9 Bruce historically as a Sheik main, but seeing a lot of Diddy Kong there as well. And that was some crazy, crazy results. So let's start off with Abadango. This Mewtwo crushing everybody all the way through winners. It wasn't easy. He beat DeBuzz 3-2 with Meta Knight. He was able to get those up air strings, even post-nerf. It just seemed like an amazing counter pick. And it goes to show that Abadango, still a fantastic Meta Knight main. There were still a few others, but they didn't get, as high as positions as we might have been historically known for them to get, but still a reasonable bracket. And then we have a victory against VoiD 3-2 with the Mewtwo. He had a fantastic neutral game. I think better than any other Mewtwo that we've seen thus far. Utilizing his Shadow Ball in neutral, not relying on the fair to do damage and staling it for the kills. He was getting those up throw kills, at the perfect percentages, as early as he could possibly get them. He was doing a great offstage game. The best combos that I think we've seen out of a Mewtwo, his nairs to up airs to his back air fast fall nair mix-ups were fantastic. And then, of course, you had the nair to footstool to disable up smashes, which was like one of the hypest things that we saw in this tournament, and he pulled it off a couple of times. It was amazing. He also beats Mars's Zero Suit in winners 3-1. That was in winners finals, and then he beats Ally in grand finals 3-0. We took that Mario to church, and he did not have much of a prayer. That Mario, poor Ally, finally making it to a grand finals and not even able to take a game against Abadango's Mewtwo. So this was one hell of a match. This really brings into question where Mewtwo sits on the tier list, if you care about that kind of thing, because mostly considered a mid-tier, even post-buffs. This dude's been buffed so much, and we've never seen a character placed within that tier list make it this high and winning a major. It was amazing. And then, but not to discount what Ally was able to do, because he had a hell of a run back and a tough time in this tournament. He starts off by losing 3-0 to VoiD, and he even tried Rob in that matchup in the third game. It looked like he might have had something going, but he ended up losing once again. So lost 3-0. Then he takes out Esam in a close 3-2 set. Then he beats Larry Lur in a pretty convincing 3-1. We know that Larry Lur had, one of his prototypical 2016 runs where he had some strong performances against a lot of great people, but he takes him out 3-1. And then he beats Tweak 3-2 in a pretty close game that was kind of back and forth. And then he beats Mr.R 3-2 in a very hype game. It seemed like every game Mr.R was involved in was super close, super hype, and very, very entertaining to watch. But Ally finally able to come up on top and making it after beating Mr.R to grand finals after winning in losers to Mr.R. And then you have third place Mars, who started off his run in top 16 by beating Pink Fresh, the best Bayonetta that we saw. He did a lot of crazy shit in pools, but he beats him soundly 3-1. Zero Suit has a good matchup against Bayonetta, and even post nerfs, he was able to adapt that aerial game to maximize the damage output of Zero Suit within the air without putting too much risk. He wasn't up-being when he shouldn't have too often. He wasn't whiffing a lot of things and had a very safe game, not as grab reliant as, say, Nairo is, but he was making a lot of safe options and doing a lot of mix-ups that was throwing his opponent off, doing things that he only does it in one set, another thing he only did in a different set. So he had a lot of tools and mix-ups for his opponents that he was conditioning them to not play against, and then he pulls it out, like going with the up air strings, catching the air dodge on Tweak's Cloud to the down B. That was fantastic. So he beat Tweak in that set 3-1 pretty soundly. Then he loses to Abadango 3-1 and gets eliminated by Ally 3-0. So strong showing, a third place, Mars's best showing that we've seen, and definitely puts his name on the map. A Zero Suit that not only did better than Nairo at a major without Zero to put anybody into losers, but also, finishing in third with some strong wins against Peak Fresh and Tweak, two of your up-and-coming players. And then, of course, we had Mr.R. He starts off by beating K9 Bruce 3-0. He knows that matchup fairly well. I don't know how much the nerfs affect the Sheik Ditto. It was very, very interesting seeing his set against VoiD, where he won 3-1. It was kind of back and forth, knowing that there was a lot of back and forth between these two on who was the best or second best Sheik in the world. And it seemed to have been going in VoiD's favor the last few tournaments, but Even though he did win 3-1, it still seemed kind of even. I felt like it could have gone either way with that Sheik Ditto against VoiD, but he pulled it out 3-1. He beat Kid Goggles in what was the hypest moment in the entire Wii U side of the tournament, going up against a Kirby that took him to Game 5. Kid Goggles started off with Kirby on a platform stage, and then move into the counter pick, Mr.R, after losing that first game to Final Destination, so he switches back to Sonic, mostly plays Sonic, Kid Goggles a Sonic main. He loses that game, goes back to Kirby on a counter pick to Smashville, wins that game, and then Mr.R goes the salty run back to Smashville, and he wins that game. And it was insane because Kid Goggles Kirby took Mr.R, one of the best players in the world, who had a top 5 finish here, consistently an amazing Sheik through and through, even post nerfs to him, utilizing the bouncing fish, the needle, setups into it, and not overextending himself off stage. The Kirby was able to duck dive, dip dive, and dodge all over what Mr.R had to offer, while still dying particularly early in this matchup. But thanks to that the loss of kill power to Sheik, that can't really kill much anymore, he was able to survive and did some amazingly insane stuff, taking him to Game 5, and it took him to the last stock where Kid Goggles had a percentage lead. Almost looked like he had a kill there at the end when Mr.R comes back with the needles and then bouncing fish. It was insane. Even knowing going into watching that video that Kid Goggles is going to lose that game, you almost think that he can come back because it was insanely hype. It was one of the hypest Smash 4 moments, was that final stock in that Game 5 against Mr.R. And it was fantastic. So after that, Mr.R goes on to beat Pink Fresh 3-2. Close game. We know that he faced up against him in Glitch in Losers Finals, where he dropped the first couple of games and then made the run back and was able to win. He was sent to Losers by Pink Fresh, remember, and then coming back in the Losers bracket, he was able to make that run back 3-2 after losing 2-1. On the winner's side of things earlier on in the bracket, and he was able to make the adjustments, playing a much more safe game as you have to against Bayonetta. You can't overextend outside of what you know is true, otherwise you get witch timed or you get down aerial booster kicked and just get taken out over to the top or to the side as he was in the first set against Pink Fresh. But he was able to make adjustments. Pink Fresh still battling very, very hard, getting some early wins. But Mr.R was able to make those adjustments and take it in Game 5. Then he goes on to beat VoiD in the Sheik Ditto 3-1, and then he goes on to get eliminated by Ally 3-1 there in Losers Finals. Outside of Nairo finishing in 49th, and it's not like he was off his game or anything. He started really strong in his first game in pools, doing some crazy stuff, and then he won the doubles over VoiD and the Cat with Kool-Aid. So he won doubles, he started off strong in pools, but he finished 49th. You have the other Zero Suit Samus main outside of Mars, Remzi, finished 33rd. So we definitely, that nerf, hurts her, but we saw Mars make the adjustment, and Nairo just got plain out beat. You take a look at the Meta Knights and how they, outside of Abadango, pulled through after the nerf. You have Jay Bandrew finishing 25th and Seabrick finishing 33rd. So you definitely see these nerfs to Sheik and Meta Knight and Zero Suits absolutely impact those characters, but not in like every matchup or against every other player. The Bayonetta is definitely something that everyone has to learn, especially going forward as more people will drop characters or pick up Bayonetta as a secondary, if not a main. But when you take a look at the difference between how VoiD and Mr.R took to the Sheik nerfs, VoiD was more looking for the forward tilts and down tilts to set up for kills off of up air, or maybe even a vanish mix-up. And then, of course, they're both going for the forward throw, catching an air dodge with bouncing fish. But Mr.R was more going for the needles into bouncing fish and relying more on a strong edge guarding game with his reads, while on the other side, VoiD was staying more in center stage and looking for a down tilt or a forward tilt into those kills. But it definitely seemed to work out more for Mr.R. But when it comes to buffs and nerfs, none benefactor better than Mr. Mewtwo with that speed buff, making his up smash even better because he was able to get a little bit more slide to it, as well as with that end lag being shaved off of the end. And Mewtwo, you better watch out for him because he is coming for you. Good showings by a lot of other people like Larry Lur and Tweak and Pink Fresh, and it was one hell of a tournament that I don't think anybody's going to forget because none of us saw it coming.
Charging it up right now, just trying to see what he can do.
Oh, that was a great use of stun right there.
Get back in here, Mars.
He's gonna pull the trigger on it. Is it going to be enough? No, Abadango hanging in there.
Oh, hold up.
Well, he survived this time. Again, yes.
Getting a lot of damage, though, regardless. I mean, Abadango is not landing safely at all right now. He's been picked up most of the time by trying to, warp and then immediately getting scooped up off of that.
Oh, my Lord! Jesus! Good Lord!
Stop this man! Stop this man!
Let me tell you something. If he's Mars, then Abadango's Pluto, because that was cold as hell.
Oh.